Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into the War Room Podcast. I'm Alvin Gutierrez, and I'm your host for this podcast. Our guest for today is Gabe Orr. Gabe holds an MBA in finance. He has developed a wide range of international business experience beginning as a financial consultant in Adelaide, South Australia, after which he transitioned to Manila, Philippines to serve as a founding director for Cornerstone Energy Development Incorporated and the managing director during the development of a $200 million wind energy project. After successfully handing over this project, he moved back to Australia where he began working with his father, Brent Orr, in his private equity endeavors internationally, specifically in the areas of finance, energy, and healthcare. This was highlighted by securing a licensing and distribution contract for a biotech product which has since been imported and distributed for patient use in healthcare facilities throughout the Philippines. His leadership responsibilities have included interfacing with investors, administrative oversight, project management, regulatory oversight, feasibility preparation, deal structuring, and contract negotiation and finalization. This is a videocast. You can check out the video version of this podcast on Spotify and YouTube. And so without further ado, let us go to the war. Hello, Gabe. Thank you so much for doing the podcast. How are you and where in the world at the moment?
Hey, Alvin, thanks so much. Yeah, I'm here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the U.S. So it's getting to be winter time. But we're doing well. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, happy Thanksgiving, belated Thanksgiving to you.
Yeah, it was my first Thanksgiving here in the States in many years. So great to catch up with my family.
Great. On this podcast, we begin by knowing more about our guests. If anyone's unaware, where you born and raised, and can you briefly tell us about your journey as a leader?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in a small town called Ray, Colorado. Grew up on a potato farm there with my family. And stayed there until through university. Attended Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so yeah, I think my journey as a leader has been developing all through the different things that I got involved with, even at a young age through sports and through other activities, and then going on and traveling internationally. So I spent 12 years in the Philippines and also about 5 years in Australia. So during that time, had opportunities to lead businesses, to lead church programs, to lead community activities and all kinds of things. So I just developed my leadership skills and trying to get involved with as many things as I could to learn from others and also try to serve other people in their leadership activities so that I could learn and grow from what they were doing, the skills that they had, and then also look for opportunities where I could apply the things that I've learned and basically put those things to use. So I guess that's how I'd answer that.
Great. For everyone's information, I met Gabe last January of 2019 and when he was invited to speak in our church and the message he shared was phenomenal. He talked about the purpose of extraordinary vision. I know that he is also a finance and investment guy. So to our listeners and viewers out there, ready your pens and notes as we are in for a treat. Now, brother, I've read your work profile and I must say that you have an extensive and impressive experience in business, finance, and investments. So tell us, have you always wanted to be a businessman and when did your interest in finance and business start?
Yeah, I think it probably started developing at a young age, growing up on the farm, being tasked with different parts of the farm operation, and just learning about how money works, how business works, how the farm operated. I obviously had an interest in business and learning the different sides of it. So I think it started then. It began to grow through education. I think as I started to grow and learn, I was always gravitating towards the math side of education and money and those kind of things. And I think there was a passion there. So I recognized that in myself, and tried to grow that and really focused in on learning in the business area. So, yeah.
Great. Interestingly, you have also moved to different places from Australia to the Philippines, and now you're in the US. I'll just like to ask you, what are the learnings about starting businesses in different countries, and how did the pandemic affect you, your family, and your business? Of course, everybody's affected by this pandemic, but now we just have to discuss more of the lessons learned. And is there any distinct changes, or are there any distinct changes or shifts in your leadership style and perspective after this pandemic? And can you just briefly walk us through that?
Yeah, that's a lot to take on, as I've had a number of countries, I guess, Philippines, done business in the US and the Philippines and Australia, and now back here to the US. So I have a wide range of experience internationally in different markets. But the amazing thing that I think I can take away from that is I really try to focus on the small things, the little things, and I think that they're um, universal, no matter where you are, no matter who you deal with, no matter what business you start. It comes down to the fundamental small things that you can take care of in your own within your own capacity. I think those are universal. And so the definitely the cultures are different, the people are different, and the areas and environments that I've worked in, there's certainly things that you have to adapt and you have to learn. But I think you still apply the same principles and the same ways of growing things and operating in each and every area, problem solving, the different things that you need to encounter in the different environments. They seem to be similar as you apply them in different places. So I think my wide range of experience has really taught me that you can trust your instincts where you are, and you trust in the people around you to help you along the way. So um, I've met some wonderful people across my journeys, and I wouldn't have time to thank all of them for the things that they've taught me. But I think it's about learning from those around you and about applying the things that are inside of you that you believe in, that you find purpose in, and when you apply those and trust yourself in every environment, I think you find that you can do more than you think you could. So
Amazing. I'm interested also in hearing more about those stories that you're mentioning, and also the experiences, particularly in starting and building businesses. So, prior to this recording, you mentioned about discussing some points to consider in building the business of your dreams with your own hands. I believe there are points which you want to discuss in this episode. So, how many are they, brother?
yeah, so I have about 9 points. We'll see if we can get to those today. But just for the listeners, I think it's really uh, important. One of the big projects or businesses that I've been had the opportunity to lead is a wind farm development in the Philippines, and I think that's the one I'd probably focus on. I did that for 11 and a half years as the founding developer and managing member of that project, and it was a budget of it's a budget of project of 200 around 200 million US dollars. So not a small undertaking, but I think that I think that has given me a platform and an ability to speak from a place of understanding what it takes. And when we talk about a really big budget of 200 million US, it seems overwhelming. To me, it was overwhelming also, but it's amazing that advancing even the smallest of decisions, even the smallest of budgetary items, can create such a value and a space for a business. So I think it's about understanding the risk reward, understanding the things that you have in your hand. And so the first point I think that I'd like to jump off from that
Sure.
um, particular opportunity is really that I that point is that to identify where you're at. Um, so like for me, I was in the Philippines. Um, I had some experience in wind development and in that space, and so I thought that I looked around, I saw the opportunity, I identified that there was an opportunity that wind development was growing in the Philippines, And because I was there and because I understood the knowledge base that I had, I felt like it was a good place to apply my skills. But in saying that, it's a really big undertaking.
Right.
Budgetary wise, I did not have the capacity. However, through relationships, through my knowledge and skills and abilities, I was able to put those pieces together over time and create something of value and success. So, could I identify every single thing I needed to build that business from the start? Absolutely not. But
Mhm.
I knew I had what it took to take the first step. So I think it's so important in our world today, and as we're entrepreneurs and trying to build businesses, it is so important to be honest with your strengths, your weaknesses, with where you're at in your life. Because if you're not honest, you can't move forward. I think so many of us we have this perception of what we want to be, but it's really important that we also take a good account of who we really are and what we're capable of. And so I think that was important for me to understand that.
Right. And you have always mentioned, I mean, not only you, but other leaders also would have agreed to what you have mentioned about identifying one's weakness. So, what do you think is the significance of identifying one's weaknesses or one's weakness? And why we need to focus on our strengths instead?
Yeah, great question. So important when you're going to start a business or as an entrepreneur, when you begin something, first you identify where you're at, and secondly, you got to understand your weaknesses because it's not that you get bogged down in them, but you have to understand how can I position myself correctly to either get people around me or to try to strengthen those areas where you're weak. But the important thing isn't that you dwell on your weaknesses, but that you understand them so that you can help your successful journey. So I think being honest with who you are helps you to identify and be successful moving forward.
Okay, brother. Then we move now to the second point, which is what is the second point, brother?
Yeah. So the second point we'd like to draw out is that we move forward from where we are. So I think it's so important that once you identify where you're at, you need to move forward from that point. And I think one of the greatest challenges in that we're finding in our generation today is so many people are idle and sitting and waiting for something to happen for them. And I find that I talk to so many people and encounter so many people, and the greatest temptation is to get stuck where you are. And I think as long as you can move forward and you're moving towards something, you're always going to find success along your path. So I'm really big on just encouraging people. Don't stop where you are. Continue to move forward. Be be intentional to advance something every day. So I think it's just so key, especially in building businesses and entrepreneurship. Sometimes you can find problems and issues in your business or in the thing that you're entrusted with, and you have the temptation to just sit and wait and be discouraged, and there's that temptation to just give up or to set idle. But I think there's always something that you can progress. And so that's something that I live with every day, that I want to take what's in my hand and I want to progress it every day. I want to advance something. And I think even celebrating small advancements sets you up for great success. So that's one huge key for me is move forward from where you are. So what can I advance today? So that's something I really want people to take away.
Right. Moving forward, so it means movement. And when we say movement, it is essential to leadership and to any other form of relationship for that matter also. So it is essential and sort of like foundational at some point. But as you may know, it's inevitable also to fail, and failing is part of growth, right? So, how do you go about it? What do you think about self preservation? Is something destructive rather than helpful? And what do you think failure can teach, which success can't?
Yeah, so I think great point and great question. I think failure is well, in my experience is inevitable. I mean, I've had failings and I've had some real times of discouragement, and I think You don't ever set out to fail. You never think that failing will happen to you, but uh, it it inevitably failures happen, mistakes happen, and I think it comes back to point one, right? You identify,
Right.
okay, where am I? I'm sitting in discouragement and failure at this point, but don't be defined by your failure. What can you learn from it? And I think it's probably cliche, but you always fail
Hmm.
forward. You
Hmm.
realize that you're not at your worst when you fail. Maybe it's circumstances outside of your control. Maybe things happen that you didn't see coming, but that doesn't you don't take it in your own identity or your own self.
Hmm.
So you're not a failure if you fail,
Hmm.
but it just means you need to make some adjustments, and what can you learn from it? So failure I see as an opportunity to learn, and some of the greatest people that I've been around, the most successful people, they have many failures,
Hmm.
but they didn't stay in their failure. They moved forward and to use that failure to make a successful journey moving forward. So but I think it's also important to note that when you fail, you shouldn't fail twice doing the same thing. um, so some people return to their failure. I don't want to do that myself. I want to learn from my failures, and then I want to move forward understanding what I've learned from. Now, I don't want to you mentioned self-preservation. I think many times um, we can make failure a part of our identity, and it's
Hmm.
important not to do that.
Hmm.
I mentioned earlier, you're not because you fail doesn't make you a failure.
Right. Right.
And I think that's so important today. So much of our world wants us to take on so many things as a part of who we are, but
Hmm.
at the core of every person, I believe there's a passion and a purpose that we were created for. And so we stick to that and understand that failure is a part of our learning and a part of everyone's journey. And when we do that, I think it allows us to separate it from who we are, and we go back to the core of who we are. And I'm a big believer that on the inside of us, it is the things that we're created for. And so when we look into that, and we see that, we know that we don't need to be defined by our failures.
Right. And obviously, as you mentioned about moving forward, it talks about movement, and movement can bring us to unexpected places, places where we can see clearly, right? So, can you tell us what can we do in those situations? Should we be taking calculated risks or just jump and sink or swim?
Yeah, great question, and especially for entrepreneurs, right? There's so much risk and reward, and all of these things that are you're having to weigh up. Do we take uncalculated risks? I would say absolutely not. I want to understand. Let's take the example of building a building. We want to understand what the costs are. What's it going to take? What are the materials needed? We want to try to understand as much as we can. Obviously, in building businesses, there's many things we're not going to understand until we get in the middle of it. But if we took a calculated risk, if we took account of the cost before we started, then at least we have a plan, and we can go back to that plan when things start to go awry. So it's so important to have a plan and to take a calculated risk. I don't believe in just shooting from the hip kind of expression here in the US. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, as we close with our second point, what do you think about detours or shortcuts of dreams? Any tips on those people right now who are watching or listening or facing difficult who or on how to face difficulties head on and not just to avoid it?
yeah. So I think this is another such a key point that I speak with people a lot about, is I think our world has a tendency to lead us towards that everyone has a shortcut to success, or that success happened overnight, and it just hasn't been my experience. So I would tell people there isn't shortcuts to your dreams and to your times. Maybe there's accelerations along your path, but those weren't shortcuts. Those were basically a part and a parcel of the journey and the learning that you had, and all of a sudden it accelerated you to the point of being successful in that area. So I'm of the opinion that take the long road, and do the hard work and continue to do that every day, advance things slowly, and watch and don't look back to take account of where you are, but just continue to look at every day as a time to advance and take those small steps forward, and you'll find yourself being far more successful than those people that look for shortcuts and to try to make things happen quickly. And I think it's a real weakness of that I have to also identify in myself. And I think that when I see other people around, they're constantly grabbing for things quickly, and they want, because our world teaches us that we should have things quickly. But I can see that that's not the way to build successful businesses and to build a successful life.
Right. Well, so many good things about your second point, but now we need to jump in and let's go to the third point, which is what is the third point, brother?
Yeah, so the third point is that entrepreneurs are, and I take it from my time on the farm, but you must look at it like it's a seed, and a seed must be planted under the ground where nobody sees, so that it can realize its growth and maturity. So this is such a important point, but I think it's one that can take some pressure off of people, because I look at building businesses like um, or you should look at building your business or being an entrepreneur as you have a seed in your hand, or maybe that seed is planted as a passion on the inside of you or in your head or wherever you find it to be. But it's a seed, and a seed needs to, even in our world and nature, it needs to be planted underground where nobody can see it, so that it can grow and fulfill its purpose. That's the way seeds are designed, and I believe it's the way businesses are designed. They are lying inside of someone. It takes a person with a passion to build a business, and that passion is a seed. And a seed is very simple. It's very small. It doesn't look impressive. It's not something that someone would look at and say, "Wow, you built something amazing." It's a seed, but that seed has to go into a place out of sight and underground, just like a seed in nature does. That business that you're carrying, or your entrepreneurial dream that you're carrying, it has to be planted. And so I think if you take the steps that I've identified so far, look at what's inside of you, look at that passion as a seed, and find the place to plant it, and understand that that seed also has a DNA of growth, I believe, just like a seed in nature does. It will grow. And that's, it comes back to that place is we don't understand. We're still learning how seeds grow. I mean, it's an amazing thing that you can plant seeds, but seeds always produce. And I think businesses also produce when there's a passionate person who plants it. So I think this point is just meant to take some pressure off people to understand that our world is really, it's created amazingly by, and I believe in God, and I'm a believer in the Bible. Just to give people some context, and I believe that the Lord created our world in such an amazing way that seeds produce after their kind, and I think that businesses also produce this way, just as He created it. So I think it can take some pressure off people along their journey.
Man, this is an interesting metaphor. But what do you mean when you say let it do its work under the ground? You mentioned about that a while ago.
Yeah, so I think and sorry if I'm not clearly portraying this, but seeds, they must do the most important foundational work where no one can see it. It's under the ground,
Mm,
3 inches deep under the ground. And I think businesses are the same. That most important work happens on the inside of the person who's going to carry that business, or whatever. It's them coming to grips with the fact that they're going to grow something and they have the capacity to do it. So before anyone in the world gets to see that business and that wonderful entrepreneurial success, it has to start with someone. And I want to encourage people today that it can start with you. And that most important growth is you recognizing the passion that you have, and that the purpose that you feel. And even though no one else can see it, you can be the one to bring that into the world by just allowing that seed to be produced through you. So I hope that answers the question.
wow, awesome, brother. And now the fourth comes in. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So So that the fourth my fourth point ties in with the seed, and it's just that entrepreneurs or a farmer, they have to trust that the seed has the DNA for growth.
Mhm.
And so there's this idea that businesses are produced through passionate people who find a purpose. Okay, and just like my wind farm that was is now a success in the Philippines, it started with the idea that I could take what was inside of me, that vision and that passion and purpose for renewable energy, and I could apply those principles into that environment, and I could see it grow. Now, did I have all the answers about how to do it? Absolutely, I didn't. But I had a passion and a purpose, and I could see the end goal, and so I just continued to move towards that. And it's just like a seed. You don't see a tree growing every day. You don't notice its growth, but you look back a few years or time has passed and you see, wow, it's really grown. And I think business is the same. It's not a short process. It's not instant success, but it's advancing things day by day. And I think that's the way a plant grows, and that's the way I look at building businesses, and that's the way I look at understanding these things, is that if you identify that seed, that need, and entrepreneurial ideas and many of these things come because you see a need in your environment, or you see uh, something that can be fulfilled, that you could serve the people around you, or you could serve your community in such a way. If you can serve people well, then you can find a successful business. So I think in that you can identify that passion and purpose by finding how you can fulfill a need or serve a purpose. And so in doing that, um, you would then understand that you, out of that passion to serve or fill that need, have the DNA to produce growth and therefore a successful business.
Right. And you've mentioned about environment. So in your opinion, how much of the environment plays the vital role in shaping one's worldview or perspective, or how much the environment impacts us
Yeah,
totally?
so
Yeah.
key, especially in our world today, because we're so bombarded with social media,
Mhm.
with all kinds of things at our fingertips, with knowledge and all of these opinions of what's happening in the world and what's going on right through COVID and these many things that we've come through. And it's really vital that we protect our environment. And I'd say there's several directions you could go with this question, but I'll just go with this from a personal standpoint. I have to be very careful with what I listen to, because
Mhm.
it can affect my perception of my environment.
Right.
And so I need to guard my listening to information, to perspectives about the world, about if you're always listening to how the depression is coming and recession is coming and the financial world is collapsing, and if this is all you're hearing every day, then
Mhm.
you're going to be very much in fear about what the future is going to hold. So I need to make sure that I have the right perception of my environment, and I leave the opinions and all of the forecasts and all of these things. I definitely don't ignore them, but I also hold true to what I know to be true, which is seeds produce. When you place a seed in good soil, it will produce fruit. Well, if you put a business in a good environment, you keep it in a good environment for growing,
Mhm.
and you place it in good soil, it's going to grow. So I
Mhm.
think we come back to the most simple ideas of our world. In confusing times, we can come back to, well, seeds always produce if they're
Mhm.
in a good environment and good soil. So this is the same idea here for us when we build businesses. Is there may be many things happening in the world, but if I can identify good soil and a good environment, I can grow a good business.
Right. And this generation is so much of filtering, right? I mean, this is the right kind of filter that we needed to have. Filtering all of the inputs coming from the environment outside the external factors. So, investment wise, do you think that a greenhouse, quote unquote, would be helpful rather than just letting the seed grow in the wild? So, I'm not really a farmer, but as you go through your elementary or your grade school period, they taught us about this basic thing called greenhouse, which really covers up or protects the plants from any harmful or any, it's a controlled environment at some point. So what do you think about that green? Do you think there is a greenhouse, or would it, do you think if there is a greenhouse, do you think it is helpful rather for the seed to grow, or just
Yes.
it's more helpful for the seed to just grow in the wild?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, greenhouse is obviously really helpful when you're really onto something, and those listeners, you need to look into greenhouses if you haven't, if you're passionate about growing, because this is an up and coming technology and business in the world. People taking and starting up businesses even from their own backyard, growing plants in greenhouses. But why is this being successful in our world today? Even commercially, why is it successful? And that's because you can control the inputs and outputs to the plant, and you can grow things that are non-toxic and
Mm-hmm.
completely organic
Mm-hmm.
because you can control the environment. And the same is true with us as entrepreneurs
Mm.
and as people really living life. We have to control the toxins in our world. We have to control the toxic voices. We
Right.
have to control the things that create things in us that are unpleasant. And so when we can, coming back to where we identify what how is my heart, what is the condition of my heart and my mind? If I'm
Mm.
feeling negative, or if I'm feeling unsettled, or maybe depressed, well, you need to check your environment, right? You check what's coming into your life. And so I think it's so important to really understand that if you're feeling depressed, well, there's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably a toxic voice or a toxic opinion that you're allowing to creep into your life and shape your worldview.
Yeah, as we close this fourth point, how do you identify the specific or a specific conducive environment to grow your business or to grow yourself into, as an individual also?
Yeah, I'm going to identify this by taking an honest look at myself. And if I'm feeling anything but positive and hopeful and expectant about the future, if I feel any negativity or anything, then I'm going to be honest with where I'm at, and I'm going to go make adjustments in my life to make sure that I'm um, producing what is good emotions and positive direction for my future. So I think I'm always taking condition of my heart and my mind and my thoughts, so that I know then I can produce positive actions and positive businesses, and it goes into every part of my life.
Cool. Let's now jump into the fifth point. What is it? What's the fifth point, brother?
Yeah, so seeds can't grow without expanding. Okay, our
Mm.
businesses can't grow without expanding, and this is something that stunts the growth of many entrepreneurs as they get excited about the first part of success, and they stop investing in it and allowing expansion to happen for the future. So, one of the things I've noticed along the way is many businesses are just operating at you know uh, even cash flow, or
Mm.
they've gotten to a level of success, but they've stopped expanding and pushing forward into to greater things. And I think that it's true with a seed also. It can't grow properly if there's not expansion to happen. So it's something that I live also, and really am conscious of is what can I do to expand what's in my hand?
Mm.
What I'm holding on to, it needs to expand. Our world, there's always expansion happening.
Right.
Um, so I think it's important to also apply this really simple principle to building businesses. Is we need to expand. That's the natural progression. And
Mhm.
so if something's not expanding, maybe it's time to sell out. Maybe it's time to look in a different direction, or take an honest look at what you're holding on to or your business and say, how can I expand this? How can I make it better? Because I think once we get stagnant, we're in a place where we can allow ourselves the
Mhm.
opportunity to be discouraged or depressed, or so we don't want to be stagnant. We need to advance and expand.
Yeah, while we're still in this seed metaphor, development and expansion, these are the things that are very scary to many business people and to many leaders also, particularly in terms of investing. Is there any middle ground to it?
Yes, absolutely. I think the middle ground is your peace and your joy in the process. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm always a big believer that I don't want to take a risk or to expand beyond my own capacity and my
Mm-hmm.
own peace. And so if I can't sleep at night, then there's a good indication for me that I need to really take account of where I'm going, and maybe I'm taking on too much. Maybe I'm trying to expand too far.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think there's always that give and take in that process. I think if you're always honest with yourself and you're always taking in your environment and taking account of where you're at, I think you will understand what is too much expansion and what is not enough.
Right. And expansion always, it always entails development. And development mean advancing yourself. Any practical tips on advancing yourself or advancing your career or your business?
Yeah, I think the tip is really just to continue to step into areas where you don't necessarily know exactly where you're, all the pieces and all the things. So maybe it be in education or in relationships. You can connect yourself with people that are doing something that you believe, where you're along the path of where you're headed.
Mm-hmm.
So I really try to surround myself with people, and this comes back to your environment. I surround myself with people that are successful, that are doing things that I'm currently not capable of, and I try to learn from them.
Right.
Or educationally, I can seek out sources to also read and to continue to advance my own education in areas where I don't know. So those are some simple tips.
Yeah, sort of like getting out of your comfort zone. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And and my family and my my wife can speak to this, but I'm someone who constantly is pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. I want to
Oh.
live in that place where I'm not comfortable, and I believe in that because um, this is where my faith in the Lord comes in as well, though. But I think when
Mm-hmm.
I live outside of my comfort zone, I rely on Him, and I think that's the safest place to be in our life is when we live by faith and not by our own efforts and abilities.
Well said, man. Now, this is getting more exciting. So, what's the sixth then? Enlighten us now.
Yeah, the sixth point is that timing is more important than wealth, power, and fame. And this is probably an interesting one for some of those people because you dream about being famous, or you dream about having lots of money or power or influence and all these things. But I really believe in my life, if I take an honest view of it, I think the timing was more important than all these things. Um, and so if you're at the right place at the right time, I believe you can gain great wealth. You can actually increase your influence, and maybe one day you will be someone that people take notice of. And I think that it's important to know that there's always, and coming back to the seed idea, is
Mm,
you must plant a seed at the right time, right? If you plant a seed in the wrong season, it's not going to grow, or it may not grow to its potential. So many times businesses and entrepreneurs have the most success because they planted their business, or they put their dream in motion at the right time. There's also been the same sort of businesses or dreams that have failed because they were done at the wrong time.
right.
So I've seen over the course of my journey in life that there's been some amazingly successful people spend a lot of money to do something and fail because they did it at the wrong time. But then there was other people that came along and spent very little money, and they were successful because they did it at the right time. So I think that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, brother, timing is everything. Now, time is really a constant topic in leadership and also in this podcast. I'm not really surprised about it that it's included in your points. So much has been said about it, but so little progress for all of us. Now, most of the time, we are being taught on how to use time, on the impact of time in our lives. But let's turn the tables now. In your own opinion, why or how do you think time can help shape our character?
Yeah,
So,
great question, and really intuitive on your part to ask this question. But I think unfortunately, the influence of our world, again, I'll come back to, is that
Mhm.
everyone wants to take shortcuts. Everyone thinks that success is a Instagram post or something, and so I think it gives the wrong impression that healthy businesses, that entrepreneurial dreams can happen overnight, and it's just not the case. And time is your friend, I would say,
Mhm.
because time builds character, it builds strength, it builds knowledge. If you're constantly advancing, if you're using your time wisely, it's going to be your friend. Now, where time begins to catch up with you is if you're idle. And so, coming
Mm.
back to the point of always advancing, and how can I use today wisely? How can I spend today advancing what is in my hand and what's around me? How can I use today to advance myself towards my purpose and my passion? If you use that in your life, I believe you'll find that time is your best friend. And if you take and look at your world and advance things slowly, just like a seed grows slowly when nobody really notices it, if you'll take that
Mm.
same approach with your life and building your
Correct.
life and your business, then you will find yourself ahead of those people that were always looking for short-term success.
Now, before we jump into the seventh, I just like to go back again on time, and I just like to ask. Most of the business people or leaders would always say that time is not enough. Do you think 24 hours is not enough? What's your personal take on that?
Sometimes it's not enough, but sometimes it feels like a long time. No, it's really I think that I take a very structured approach to the
Mhm.
things of my day. So I think that's important because if you're not structured, I think many times the simple things get left behind, and you get busy doing the things that maybe are less important. So
Mm.
I do want to structure into my day the things that are most important to me, and that's learning, that's advancing um, the things that are in my hand, and that's also time for my own personal development. So no matter what I'm doing, whether what business I'm working on, what entrepreneurial thing, I still make time for my personal development, for my walk of faith, and then I make time for my family. Those things that are non-negotiables, those things that are most important.
Yeah, and so what they say, time flies so fast when you enjoy what you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, now let's go to the seventh. Seventh point must be winning in the wings. Walk us through it now.
Yeah. So the seventh point is something we've kind of touched on already, but it's just learn along the way. And I think it goes with what you're saying is we want to enjoy the journey of where we're going. So we want to learn and we want to enjoy that along the way. So I think that's so important to um, our success and whatever we're building. If we stop learning, how can we advance it forward in a positive direction? So we want to be learning, and we always want to be taking in, um, as we've discussed, the environment and be perceiving how can I um, move this forward and how can I grow.
Couldn't say more, brother. But how do you keep the momentum in learning? Is there a saturation point when it comes to learning? When you say like, I've already learned so much, and that's enough for what I can use in my business
Right.
or in my leadership.
Yeah, so I think you follow the different. Well, this is my experience, I guess, and what I would do is, but I often find that my desires or my interests shift over time and over my journey. So I follow that, and if I'm interested in a certain thing, then I begin to learn about that, and I begin
Mm-hmm.
to grow my knowledge in that area. And I think interesting for entrepreneurs and for people building businesses, most likely you're not going to build just one.
Mm.
And so it's important to be well rounded. And even myself, I'm into many industries now. So, and I've adapted from energy to healthcare to even
Yeah.
agriculture and sort of things. So I think that's one of the keys to really securing your future also is to be well rounded, right? So I think this is something that can really help if you're feeling stagnant and learning along your way, well, then maybe go see what's of interest to you and then begin to become an expert in that area.
Right. And as they say, there's no age in learning. You're never too old to learn new stuff, right?
Yeah, if you don't want to learn, then why be alive? I think I want to learn. from the
Correct.
people around me. I want to learn from just everything, because that's what life is about.
Correct. And I totally agree with you, brother. I think I've read somewhere an HBR, Harvard Business Review article, which says that one of the necessities of a leader or a business person who will thrive in many, many more years to come is versatility. And versatility comes when you learn and when you allow yourself to learn more and to grow, not just only at one aspect, but also to make yourself well rounded, as you've mentioned. Okay. So gathering all the pieces one by one now. Now let's jump to the eighth. What would that be?
Yeah, it's kind of something I touched on in seven, but don't forget to enjoy your experience and celebrate the victories along the way. So I think this is just it goes with learning, but it also goes with the idea that you take small steps to advance things every day. And I also have um, this is something I'm working on
Mm-hmm.
to be very honest. But I want to be able to celebrate even small victories because I think it's so important to be able to celebrate and to understand that you've moved something forward, that you've advanced something. Because I think you can get to the point where you just go through the motions, right? And we don't want to again we don't want to be stagnant. We want to be alive, and just like a seed in a plant that's growing. Um, it's there's this idea that it's vibrant, that it's that its growth is creating a good environment, and I think it's the same for us as entrepreneurs. We need to celebrate and to enjoy what we're doing.
I so like this point, brother. I think we could end with this point now. But yeah, I don't know about you, but sometimes I can feel some guilt every time I get to celebrate or enjoy something. Is there any way to feel not feel that way? Or is it something that we should, totally eradicate from our vocabulary or from our radar?
Yeah, yeah, interesting question, and it brings up an interesting answer. I guess I would say probably for everyone out there. I think that so many times when we're successful or that we have success, people in our own circles or environments want to sort of um, stunt our celebration, or they look down on our celebration. I think it's important that you understand that when you're successful, you will have people that don't like your success, or you will have people in your circles that are offended by your success. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to understand where is that feeling of not wanting to celebrate victory and not wanting to enjoy the good things that happen to us. Where is that coming from? Right. And so I'm always taking account also in that is this pressure from other people, or is this why is it that I'm feeling awkward about celebrating? Because I think I want to be the first to celebrate someone else's victory. And
Mm-hmm.
I think when I'm able to celebrate others, then it helps me to be able to celebrate my own. So if I'm feeling awkward about celebrating my own victory, maybe I haven't taken the time to celebrate others, because I think it puts my perspective correct on that point. So that's kind of how I would answer that.
Hey there, sorry to interrupt. Promise this will be quick. We'd just like to thank you all our dear sponsors who have generously supported this podcast. Thank you for helping us with our mission to help more young and emerging leaders to love deeper, live stronger, and lead better. If you're interested in supporting this podcast, please click the listener support in our Spotify main page or send us an email at thewarumdesk@gmail.com. We'll be more than happy to give you the available options to sponsor an episode or the entire podcast itself. Also, we are partnering with various rural communities and public schools as our primary beneficiaries for the sponsorship proceed. Imagine you can learn for yourself and help others at the same time. Don't miss this awesome opportunity. Partner with us now. Thank you. Now, back to the show. Peace out.
And brother, as what they say, if you have party poopers and how to get rid of them, just turn them into party clowns or party animals. So
I like that. I
anyway,
haven't I haven't
yeah.
heard that.
Yeah. So I think that's a way out for us to really not feel that guilt every time we celebrate. Now we jump off to the last point, the ninth point. The ninth point is
the ninth point is just a little bit of a recap, but this is want to give like three ways to fail as an entrepreneur, or three ways to fail along your journey. And this is to quit moving forward, to camp at the first sign of success, and then to forget how you got there. And I think this is kind of a bigger picture point for me, and I'll probably just focus in on the last one, to don't forget how you got there. Because I think for all of us, and for myself included, this is something I'm always conscious of along my journey and in my day to day. Is I remember where I came from, and you remember that success doesn't happen overnight. And I think you want to bring people along your journey with you. And so um, I also want to invest in those people that invested me, and I want to invest in those people that are coming behind me. So I think it's just so important that I'm using my success to advance someone else's journey as well. And this comes along with my passion and purpose for business and for entrepreneurship. It goes beyond myself, and I think this is really key to be healthy in your environment and also in your entrepreneurial dreams. Is that you see something that's beyond yourself. And so I wanted to finish with this point, because I
Mm-hmm.
think some may say, well, how is this related to growing my business or being an entrepreneur? But I would say it's actually one of the most important points that I could, or most important piece of advice I could give to someone, is if you look to advance others, and if you look to help those people that are coming along behind you, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
then it's going to help you to move forward into what you're doing as well. So there's something amazing about giving a hand out in the sense that I want to help someone up, um, and then it is returned to you. And I think that is something that I also believe very strongly. Just like seeds, when planted in the ground, grow, I also believe that when you help others, you'll also find yourself being helped. And so I guess this also comes back to my belief system, but I really believe that um, that our world is set out in such that, when you help other people, you also find yourself being helped. So I just wanted to finish off with that.
Wow, man, that was so good. Paying it forward. Now, I think that should come very handy not only for businessmen or for leaders, but for everyone. Now, as we summarize this episode, in your personal experience as a businessman and as a leader, can you share an experience where you failed at one point and where you thought you wouldn't be able to recover, but eventually you did?
Yeah. So um, thanks for that question. I think I'll bring it back to the Philippine wind farm that I kind of alluded to,
Mhm.
that I was in charge of managing, and really developed it as an entrepreneur. 11 12 over 12 11 and a half 12-year period, and in that period of time there would have been at least a dozen times over that time where I had felt I failed, and I felt the business was not going to continue. In fact, I in that period of time, and some entrepreneurs would maybe relate to me, as I ended up doing other things, working other jobs, or trying to do other things to make ends meet during the time I was building that business, because I felt that I failed, or the opportunity wasn't going to be successful. So in that time, of course, I learned that even in your worst failures, you'll find your learnings and your growth, and things are never as bad as they seem. And so I guess this leads me to my my quality, I think, that has helped me to be successful more than any other, is I didn't give up. And it sounds so simple, but it's really so true. Is if I have a passion and a purpose, and I'm not going to give up, and I keep moving towards it. And I think that if I could peg one thing to how was that business successful, or how did that become a success, it really is because I chose not to give up. If there was so many times where it looked like a complete failure and I could have given up, but I never did. I might have done other things to make ends meet, but I never gave up on the purpose and the passion of that particular endeavor. So because I didn't give up, and that's really the only thing I can say that I really did well, I didn't give up. and because of that, I think it is a success today, I can say.
Fantastic. Our minds and hearts are full right now, and we hope to hear more from you. Let's discuss probably next time about your ministry. So for now, we come to a segment of the show which is called Fast Break. In this segment, I'm just gonna ask you 5 random questions, totally unrelated to our topic, and you just have to give me your top of mind answer. Of course, there are no judgments. This is pure fun. Are you ready, brother?
Let's go for it.
Okay. Question number 1. Tell us something that people know about you but isn't true.
People know about me that isn't true.
Correct.
That's an interesting question. um,
Top of mind answer, brother.
oh man, people know about me that isn't true.
Mhm.
Um,
I know it's hard.
that one's got me stumped. Um, let me see. Man, I'm not coming up with an answer off the top of my mind.
Okay, let's come back to that later. Let's go to question number 2. Is that all right with you?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go to question number 2. Name your top 5 favorite songs, and in one sentence, what does it say about you? So give me first your top 5 favorite songs. What's the
Okay.
first one?
So these questions are killing me.
Sorry, brother.
Honestly, so for the songs I listen to predominantly worship and praise music. So I'm not exactly sure the titles, but I kind of just listen to it on continuous play.
Okay.
So it would just be surrounding praise and worship.
Praise and worship song. And in one sentence, what does it say about you?
I guess it says to me that I am a person of faith, and I strongly believe in God's in my relationship with the Lord and His role in my life and in my walk here on earth.
Yeah, just to have a follow-up question on that. I know it's forbidden to have follow-ups on fast break questions, but top of mind, what is the best song? What's best worship song for you? Anything right top of mind right now?
So it's not forbidden to have follow-ups. It's probably forbidden to have no answers for questions. but
That's
but
fine,
we're
brother.
having fun. We're having fun anyway.
Sure.
But my
Yeah.
best worship song at the moment is "Worthy is the Lamb." So that would be my one that it's been listening on repeat lately.
Sure. Nice. Okay, let's jump to question number 3. I know you're Australian. So if you have a message to your Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, what would that be?
I think my message to him or to any world leader at the moment is don't make short-term decisions to try to affect things. Think of things generationally and what could you do to advance the next generation. And I think that would change a lot in our world today.
Great. Question number 4. What is or are your pet peeves and why? Just give us, I think, 2 or 3. Yeah.
My pet peeves. I think my pet peeves are, let's see.
Things that you hate the most.
Yeah. I think my pet peeves are people that are pessimistic and negative about the world or about even opportunities or anything. So pessimism would be one big pet peeve for me. Another one would be just I guess people who don't value what they have. I think that's
good.
That's
nice. Yeah, before I go to the question number 5, because the question number 5 is a total closer, I'll go back to question number 1. Tell us something that people know about you but isn't true.
The funny thing is what comes to top of mind is I try to live my life open and honest before people. So, but I think people oftentimes get the impression that I'm somewhat stuck up or proud of myself, but I don't believe that I don't believe actually that's true. However, people might have a different idea. So I guess that's how I'd answer that question.
That's awesome. Last but not the least, what is the biggest lie about leadership that you have heard about being a leader? The biggest lie
Yeah,
that you have heard about
the
being a
biggest
leader.
lie I think would be maybe a perception issue, but people often have the perception that a leader is the one instructing everyone what to do and telling everyone what to do. And I actually think that the best leaders that I've been around they're ones who serve those around them and make the people around them better. So I think it's maybe a different leadership style, but people dream about being a leader because they think they're going to have all the control. But I think great leaders are the ones that give control to those around them in certain areas and understand how to position people for success and make everyone else around them better. So I think that's
Perfect. Before we end, are you watching the World Cup?
I'm keeping up with a few teams. I guess I
Who are
haven't
you
watched
rooting for?
anything,
Who are you rooting
but
for?
well, I'm obviously in the States now, so I have a vested interest to root for the
Come
U.S.,
on.
which they tied England the other night, right? So
uh,
it's I would say a tie is a win for us.
yeah. Surprisingly, there are countries that are like Japan. When Japan won the other day, it was so big.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. It's massive.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Thank you so much for being so sport. But before we end the show, I just like to ask you one more question to conclude the episode and to stir up the minds and the hearts of our viewers and listeners. And this is it. What do you think is the best leadership strategy that you've learned so far? Again, what do you think is the best leadership strategy that you've learned so far?
Yeah, so it comes back to the what kind of you drew out of me in the 5 questions, but the best leadership strategy I've learned is make everyone else around you better. Invest in those relationships around you. See how you can help others and advance others towards their purpose, and watch that your leadership influence will grow. And it's actually contrary to what people think, that you need to pull people down to prop yourself up, but I actually think you lift others up and you'll find yourself leading the cause, and you'll find people following you. So that's my best advice.
And that's it for our episode. Again, thank you so much, brother. I hope we could do another episode. And just in case they would like to reach out to you, where can they find you in social media? Or you can also give your email address.
Yeah, so if people want to connect, my email address is Gabe, that's GABE, at precisioncapitalventures.com. And you can also look up our website, precisioncapitalventures.com.
Great. Thank you so much, brother. See you again next time.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you in our next episode. If you like this podcast, please click the follow button and hit the bell button to get updates on our new episodes. If you are a brand and you wish to partner with us, please send us an email at thewarroomdesk@gmail.com. We would also like to take this opportunity to thank all our sponsors who made this podcast possible. If you're interested to support us, please click the sponsorship link in our show notes. Always remember, love deeper, live stronger, and lead better. See you next time at The War Room.